Thank you for coming to our Talk Sense live stream. We've had a really interesting panel earlier, tokenizing commodities. I saw the energy; it was really awesome. Irina did a wonderful job, getting the views out of them. Now I'm trying to see if I can pull something similar with you. What we are going to focus on is so. They spoke about tokenizing commodities. Now, I want to draw your attention to equities and debt securities. And I come from that world, traditional financial securities. And I was wondering, how can tokenizing or digitized securities change the paradigm for equities and debt, let alone the public market, but within the private markets?
Good question. I think the underlying sort of needs to make sense. It needs to be practical, and it needs to solve a real problem.
Yes.
So let's take early stage or startup equity as an example. So the normal situation. So let's just be super practical. Normal situation is I invest in an early stage startup. I invest $200,000.
Yeah.
In a project that I believe in. I believe in the team, I believe in the service and the product.
Yeah.
They go on and build it, I sit, there's another round, I contribute again,
Absolutely.
etc.
Yeah.
On average, these projects take 7-8 years.
Yeah, there's a gestation period, a time lag before you can crystallize value. Absolutely.
Not only, if I wanna turn that investment, say something happens in my life, and I wanna get rid of that investment, I can't hold it anymore.
Yeah.
It's literally impossible.
Yes.
To change that. So there comes, for example, tokenization, where the transfer can be easier. You can put in standard rules and smart contracts, etc., where how and when you can sell and buy. You have a token, you can actually transfer that for a price. Let alone if there would be a vibrant market for
price discovery.
Early stage sort of trading of
early
equity.
stage assets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that's and will it come? Absolutely. Absolutely, this will happen. The question is when does the market sort of meet the needs?
So in a nutshell, it's that within the private market space, be it within debt or equity, there exist key issues. What are the issues? One is transferability. It's difficult, it's cumbersome process, there's many layers of bureaucracy involved, let alone intermediaries and cost. There is no price discovery within the secondary market space. So if an SME, right, even with a great idea, wants to go and raise, or it's a profitable entity, wants to go and raise, it's very difficult to price that security, be it in debt or in equity, in both sides. So if we can have a secondary marketplace enabling price discovery, that would be an advantage as well.
Of course, but I think the prime driver is liquidity. So the prime driver is that the ownership can change hand in a practical way, and that maybe in a small way you can create demand, and we're talking small startups here. So I think it's all about how practical it is. Does it work?
Is it relevant?
Exactly. Exactly. And then of course, if and when you tokenize, there are platforms that then ease your life. So platforms like cap table management tools. You've been an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur. Many times we've all thought about the cap table and so on. How is this? How is that? How is this raised? How is this convertible note? This can take that away because you have an sort of self-updating automatic.
Absolutely.
Stakeholder communication comes with it, and all kinds of tools like that then just eases your life, makes it more focus on the business more and less on the sort of admin of your stakeholders.
Absolutely. And let me go back and draw on the fact and which I think is key, is that tokenizing a debt or an equity, is it relevant? And let me bring on that fact. So for us, we at Grip Investments, our focus was, let us enable investors from across the world to invest into the GCC region. Let us ease the process and let us enable global investors to participate in the growth of this region. Right?
Yeah.
Why? Because in this region there are multiple intermediaries, the market is heavily fragmented, and if you want to have a meaningful exposure, you need to take a GCC basket. But if you want to take a GCC basket, if one was to only go through the listed equity space, your exposure is lopsided towards financial services and real estate.
Yeah.
So that's why we went about creating a basket of assets combined into one. Now, for us, tokenization is extremely relevant because we enable a global pool of investors to invest into the GCC region.
Yeah.
Now, if I was to bring that back to the private market space and connect it to relevance, okay, if we are to create liquidity in the private market space, if we are to enable that price discovery and broader participation of investors, do you believe that enabling a global access or a wider pool of access to these markets is relevant, and that is something that tokenization enables?
In principle, yes. So in principle, yes, but then you have to look at what category you're in, what segment you're in, where the interest actually is.
Yeah.
So some startups and some smaller growth companies have that sort of global demand. Some are more regional, geographical. It depends. I think it depends a lot on that. Sometimes it fits. And I think when it does fit, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense because then you have possibly that reach.
Now, that's the other thing I want to draw on. Yes, some businesses are domestic centric or region focused, so on. Not every business is a global business. But coming from Finland, we've had this great mobile company that was Nokia, that was founded out of Finland. It was a great enterprise which revolutionized mobile phones in their era. Now, Nokia started just like any other company on ground zero and built itself up. Now, that company became global because its product enabled it to become global. Now, when it's at its infancy, enabling those shares to be accessible by a global pool of investors means a wider participation is encouraged at an early stage into a company which then becomes global. Let's look at our friends at Kyrotech. Excellent idea, right? Now, why can't that technology be accessible to a global pool of investors?
So yes, you're bringing definitely accessibility to the market, and then again I think it's market driven, investor driven. I like this category. I like this. How can I get my hands on that, even if it's on the other side of the world? This gives that possibility. So certainly yes, absolutely. And that's maybe another feature of the possibility of tokenization in a global market, that I like a certain service and I can have access to that service in an early stage.
Absolutely.
And I can I believe it, I use it, so why wouldn't I maybe take a small stake in it?
Exactly.
So yeah, definitely.
And this is something that when we look at GCC, that I think is very relevant. Now we have a burgeoning pool of people looking at different sectors here within the region, from biotech to nanotechnology, to people wanting to dissect a cell and figure out what's happening and all that.
To fintech.
To fintech, absolutely. Now, this is not a region traditionally suited to raise investments for biotechnology. A hypothetical example, but biotechnology. But if a biotech firm can tokenize, enable global access to that relevant pool of investors, that I think is a groundbreaking initiative for this part of the world, because now we don't have to depend on the conventional or traditional pool of investors for everything.
True, yes. But let's again, I think, put things in perspective. What has happened in, like, look at the startup scene here. What has happened in the last 10 years, right? We started with Yahoo Maktub, right?
Yes.
And then soon after came, I think it was Donkey, which was like the pre-version of Dubizol,
right?
And then came Dubizol, right? So and that sort of kicked off this amazing sort of startup era here, and you know, VCs have come and money's being raised, and
global transactions have happened from Souk.com, become Amazon, Kareem, Uber.
Exactly. There's still a small amount.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But from this big pool of startups, so yes, again, accessibility, but we're still early here.
Okay.
But I think the growth is phenomenal. I mean, this is really becoming like the startup hub of the Middle East, and same maybe with Cairo, massive things happening.
And also state-related initiatives. On just yesterday, I read about Mubadala allocating 250 million for the startup scene and tech focus. I mean, excellent initiative. Hats off to the powers that be to have initiated these things. Now, what we as within the investment banking space or the investment management space, what is that we need to do to get these markets off the ground, to get some activity going?
I think these solutions need to be, again, I sound like I'm repeating myself, but they need to be practical and they need to bring value. So say from the debt side, and we look at bonds. So tokenizing a bond in itself gives, of course, a few features that bring value. But again, in the bond sort of scene, I think it's more the back end of it, the efficiency of it, managing bonds, yield payment features, stuff like this that sort of bring the effect. So all in all, I think it needs to work, it needs to be practical, it needs to bring value. If it doesn't,
it doesn't sell.
It doesn't sell.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just like anything else.
Just like anything else. This is nothing else. This is just bringing new technology, new ways.
Absolutely. And that's the cusp of it. And that's what investors need to realize. So in conclusion, I'm really glad that you brought it up, because tokenizing an equity or tokenizing a bond does not change anything. Exactly. What it does, it brings a technological facet to a conventional asset and adds value in the way that asset can operate within an ecosystem. And it is the merits of this transformation that technology brings to these assets at the wrapper level. That makes it all the more relevant, and it doesn't change. We are not reinventing the wheel here just because we are issuing bonds on a blockchain or we are issuing equity on a blockchain. No, not at all. What we are doing is we are transforming the market to make it more efficient.
Correct. And bringing features that really make sense, that makes things easier, makes things more accessible, and it makes things more secure and transparent.
Absolutely. And this is what the investors or the conventional investors who seem to have that level of resistance to embracing this should realize, is that, hey, people were hesitant to go from a keypad mobile phone to a touchpad thinking, why do I need it? It's working fine. Why are you trying to reinvent the wheel here? Exactly. But tell me now, can you live without a touch phone?
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's the same thing for issuing a security on a chain.
Exactly. So we as, industry drivers should maybe hold back on the sort of, bringing the tokenization up front, and instead talk about what the value is of what we're doing, and then, not
distract the due diligence.
Exactly. Because it just makes things more complicated.
Absolutely.
And we've spoken to some investors, and when you leave out that discussion, it's a conventional discussion.
Exactly. Yeah.
With new features that
Yes.
make things just better.
Better for everyone.
So yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, Fredrik.
Thank you.
And look forward to working with the great initiatives that you all are up to.
Thank you.
Thank you.